Measuring the impact of your business is simpler than you might think. You don't need to spend as much time or as much money as you'd imagine to truly understand the needs of those you seek to serve. The goal of this video is to illustrate how a venture can measure its impacts using the William Davidson Institute's Base of Pyramid Impact Assessment Framework. The Impact Assessment Framework is a 6-step process that includes impact assessment framework generation, survey generation, pre-field activities, administering surveys, managing data, generating results, and improving business models. The Base of the Pyramid Impact Assessment 3x3 is a tool that can help enterprises identify the impacts of a BOP venture. Each column in this grid represents a different group of stakeholders: local buyers, local sellers, or local communities. Each row represents a different area of impact, either economic, relationship, or capability well-being. An enterprise wishing to determine their impacts will go through and identify relevant impacts for each grid box. For more detailed information on how to fill in the BOP Impact Assessment Framework and identifying impacts, see our video on how to conduct a strategic analysis, which can also be found on the William Davidson Institute's website. An organization wishing to determine the impacts of a venture would fill out this 3x3 with the necessary information. This presentation considers a fictional BOP venture that involves recruiting local entrepreneurs to sell a product to the BOP. If this organization filled out the 3x3, it would look something like this. As previously mentioned, the columns represent different groups of people. The rows represent the different areas of impact. The individual boxes, therefore, represent the impact on a specific group in a specific area. Suppose that two of the potential impacts that the organization found most notable were increases in economic productivity in local buyers and increases in conflicts over family roles among local sellers. It is necessary to classify all of the impacts based on magnitude and likelihood in order to gauge how important each impact is with respect to others. The impacts are classified into 4 subcategories based on magnitude and likelihood. As a reminder, this is a high-level overview of the strategic analysis portion of the BOP Impact Assessment Framework. For a more detailed discussion of the strategic analysis behind the framework, see our other video. The next step would be for the organization to design a survey to measure the major impacts identified through strategic analysis. The process of generating survey questions involves referring back to the 3x3 from step 1. In order to measure the high magnitude and high likelihood impacts, a pre-existing set of evaluation criteria should be found for each impact. If no relevant indicators exist, simple baseline questions can be developed by the organization's team. For example, income questions. Suppose that this organization were specifically interested in their impacts on local buyers. The indicators that this organization could use to generate their survey and quantify their impacts could be as follows. Income changes could be measured with a question set that includes measures of monthly income, expenditures, savings, and other relevant data. Economic productivity could be measured using a simple question set that compares baseline productivity to productivity after a certain condition is met, in this case, introduction of the organization's product. General health improvements could be measured with survey questions that follow basic established protocols for evaluating health. Professional reputation and status could be measured using an evaluation of a buyer's self-esteem, perceived value in a community, and their opinions of their own image. These pre-existing criteria can then all be compiled into the final survey that the organization will use. In order to evaluate their impact on buyer productivity, for example, the organization might ask buyers to rate how much a certain condition that their product alleviates affected their work on a scale of 1 to 10, with 0 corresponding to no effect and 10 corresponding to complete prevention of all work. The William Davidson Institute would follow the same process to find other questions to include in the survey that would measure the major impacts on buyers identified during the strategic analysis. These questions would then be put together to create a survey. In order to adequately assess impacts, several research design choices must be made before entering the field. First, the survey should be pre-tested in the field in order to adapt the instrument to the local context, thereby increasing the target population's understanding of the questions. Another important pre-field activity is the translation of the survey. Surveys must be translated into the local language and then back-translated into English. This ensures that the survey retains its meaning and stays consistent regardless of the language of the target country. Decisions also need to be made about the research design. We recommend using both a treatment and comparison group in order to demonstrate causality. Decisions must be made about how large each group will be and how to ensure that there is no overlap. The organization in question could consider a group of individuals that purchase their product the treatment group, and a group that does not would be the control group. It is also important to decide how often measurements will be taken and when they will be taken. For example, treatment and comparison groups could be interviewed when they decide to buy or not to buy the organization's product, and then again 6 months later. Depending on resources available, an organization should consider hiring a third party to collect the data in order to establish impartiality. The next step involves organizing the data. This is a straightforward process. However, the integrity and confidentiality of the data should be well thought out for each of the following processes. Data transport. This involves logistics of moving and centralizing the data from collection locations to the place of the data. Data storage. The data must be safely held at the place of entry and potentially locked. Data entry. Once collected and aggregated, the data must be entered into the data analysis system. This is extremely tedious, and as such, errors tend to occur. However, it is also extremely important. Data preparation. The data must be reviewed, cleaned, and prepared for analysis. The data collected in field can be used by managers to enhance the positive impacts of a venture while minimizing the negative impacts. The BOP Impact Assessment Framework is a strategic tool to allow them to better meet the needs of those in the BOP who they seek to serve. Based on the data collected, analysis can reveal what impacts actually occurred versus what impacts were expected. The core of any successful BOP venture should focus on creating a fortune with the BOP, which means hearing the voices of those they seek to serve. An organization serious about maximizing its positive impacts and minimizing its negative effects on the BOP should conduct an impact assessment at least once a year. The results that the organization generates should dynamically impact its business model. The William Davidson Institute has worked with clients in Africa, Asia, and Latin America to implement this framework. For more information, contact us at bopresearch@umich.edu. The 7-step process outlined in this video is an overview of how the William Davidson Institute's Impact Assessment Framework works. The William Davidson Institute regularly holds training workshops for organizations interested in learning how to implement the BOP Impact Assessment Framework. WDI also works one-on-one with organizations to develop tailored impact assessments using the BOP Impact Assessment Framework. For more information, visit www